Good afternoon, dear students. We were discussing about the heavy metal poisoning, and we finished almost iron poisoning. We finished. We'll go move to the next one, arsenic poisoning. It is a naturally occurring element in the earth. Arsenic, we know that it's a naturally occurring element in the earth, and mostly we can see it is an industrial product, or sometimes we can find it in the it's a component of the pharmacy products. Also we can see that commercial applications are more vast, are more with arsenic, including the manufacturing of semiconductors, wood preservatives, or industrial applications. Wherever we can find this arsenic as an important in the commercial application. So where we will go for this human exposure? Human exposure can be occurs from the natural source, mainly if there is a volcanic eruption. The volcanic eruption, the lava can flow into the cultivating soils, or the lava can be contaminated to the water sources. From there, arsenic can be leached out into the soil or into the water. So this is how an human exposure is mostly possible with arsenic. And the chemical forms of arsenic, mainly arsenic's atoms exist in the elemental form as a trivalent as well as pentavalent oxidation status. So if you see the toxicity or the level of sequence of organic arsenal toxicity is, if the pentavalent have high toxicity when compared to trivalent, and also when compared to arsenic salts. And soluble arsenic compounds, they are well absorbed through the respiratory system and as well as gastrointestinal tract, and cutaneous absorption is limited, but sometimes they are clinically significant. So arsenic is well absorbed through the GIT as well as arsenic through the respiratory tract. If arsenic dust or industrial dust has been contaminated to the air, it can be easily absorbed through the respiratory tract. And also if there is the arsenic has been leached into the water, drinking water source, or into a food, automatically from gastrointestinal tract also they can be easily absorbed. And cutaneously they can absorb, but the absorption is limited, but it can produce a clinical significance in the patients. So absorption of absorbed arsenic undergo methylation in the liver. They metabolized and methylation in the liver, and what happened, the arsenic binds to the sulfatyl group present in the keratinized tissue. So what happened, once it methylation happens in the liver, then they can easily go and bind with the sulfatyl groups of any enzymatic system or any tissues, any keratinized tissues. It can be easily go and present. So the presence of arsenic in the keratinized tissues will be more. So what are the keratinized tissues? Mainly we can see hair, nail, or skin. Maybe these are the hair and nail are the keratin mostly, and the hardened skin is the keratinized tissue. And in skin also the level of arsenic can be high. So mechanism how they produce the toxic effect. Exerts the toxic effect by several mode of action. They can produce the toxic effect by different mode of action. They can interfere with your enzyme system. As I told you, they can easily go and bind with the arsenic can easily go and bind with the sulfatyl groups present in the enzyme system, thereby denaturing the enzyme and completely changing or altering the enzymatic system, or the enzyme functions can be altered. So that is a one mechanism where it can produce toxicity. Inorganic arsenic or its metabolites can induce oxidative stress. So once the enzymatic system is got blocked or been inhibited, automatically we are susceptible for an oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is nothing, the generation of free radicals which cannot be scavenged by our free radical or scavenging groups in our body. So thereby they can so the oxidative stress can be increased. So if there is an increase in oxidative stress, they can go for an alteration of gene expression and interfere with the cell signaling transductions can be get interfered. So gradually it can get affected to the body. And if you see the clinical toxicity and how we can see what is the present and the presentation, if you see how the symptoms or the acute symptoms of this arsenic poisoning are. If you see the acute arsenic poisoning, mainly in workers or acute inhalation of exposure to high level of arsenic dust or fumes, so mining industry or such industrial area where they may get a sudden high exposure of arsenic dust or fumes, because we know that arsenic can be easily get absorbed through your respiratory system. So fumes or dust can be easily get absorbed. And gastrointestinal system include nausea and so what are the symptoms of this once the arsenic dust or fumes are absorbed? You can see nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain with a severe watery diarrhea. So first symptom in the gastrointestinal tract is precipitate, mainly nausea and vomiting, and abdominal pain with severe watery diarrhea. Diarrhea with watery in nature can be loose stool motions can be happen. And if the person having an severely poisoned or highly exposed, then there may garlic like odor in his breath as well as stool. So if a person is having highly poisoned or the amount of poison, amount of exposure is very high to such a person, then his breath may get a garlic odor or its stools may get a garlic odor. And then it can be followed by dehydration. So due to a loss of watery diarrhea, can produce nausea and vomiting, can produce dehydration and hypotension in the patients. And patients experience cardiac, because once the dehydration starts, your elements loosed from your body like calcium, potassium, sodium, then there will be an alteration in the elements in the body. Automatically what happen, and experience a cardiac arrhythmias. Say your cardiac rhythm will be get affected, followed by a shock and acute respiratory syndrome, and sometimes it leads to death. So these are the presentation of an acute poisoning of arsenic. And a chronic poisoning, mainly a gradual a slow exposure of this arsenic to patients. The first and foremost symptoms we can see with the skin lesions, that is hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation. These are the early manifestation or early symptoms of arsenic poisoning. So hyper or hypo, anything can be happen. And also it can go to a and also it can goes to an Bowen's disease. Bowen's disease is nothing, an early form of skin cancer. You can see the signs of red or scaling of the skin in the persons. They are called as Bowen's disease, or it can lead to skin carcinoma. In the initial stage of skin cancer, and patches of scale formation happens in the skin, and red coloration happens in the skin. That is the Bowen's disease. That is the first symptom, and followed by skin carcinoma. And neurological manifestation like sensoriomotor polyneuropathy can be happen. That is, he may lose the functions of many parts of the body. Sensory lose functions like difficulty to swallow, difficulty to breathing, difficulty to move his hands, legs, walking, everything. Sometimes it may multiple polyneuropathy can be happen to the patients. And cancer can be happen. Cancer to skin is a main area, because as we know, arsenic will be accumulated more in the skin, So automatically the skin is the vulnerable area where skin cancer can be produced. Nose, lungs, liver, kidney, bladder and prostate are the other areas where are susceptible to form a cancer due to excess or arsenic exposure. And the liver, hepatic angiosarcoma can be produces. There is a cancer formation in the liver cells. Its preliminary symptoms are like jaundice or excessive bilirubin level, or a new liver transaminase enzymes level will be increased, and this is a preliminary symptom of an hepatic angiosarcoma. Endocrine functions like type 2 diabetes mellitus, it can alter the pancreatic function, so it can causes type 2 diabetic functions. And respiratory system, reduce lung function in men, but women are less exposed, or reduce of lung function men but not in women. That was the report we seen. So women are more tolerable than men in such conditions. And diagnostic and evaluation, how we can diagnose or what is the evaluation of this arsenic poisoning. Mainly we can see you should go for an medical or environmental history. So what is a medical? Medical means what are the drugs he is, whether the patient is taking any drugs, like whether he is going subject to take any Ayurvedic or Unani or Siddha products, because most of these drugs contains or contaminated with heavy metals, sometimes with arsenic heavy metals, or sometimes this especially Siddha preparations, they may use the arsenic which may not be treated properly, which can be precipitated into an toxicity. So medical and environmental, where he is working or where he is staying, where was his geographically where he was staying, and such conditions should be, first history should be collected. And physical examination should be include the examination of the skin changes. So physical examination should be done, that includes the skin changes. And you can go for a mesos lining in the nail of the skin. You can see here, you can see the line of the skin is get mesal lining, that you can see different colors, layer of lining you can see, that is called a mesal lining happens in the skin. And acute exposure, it can goes to abdominal radiographic and may be demonstrated gastrointestinal radio opaque materials. And ECG should be and I can go for a person having an acute exposure, go for an radiographic examination. The gastrointestinal radio opaque materials can be found in the gastrointestinal tract. And ECG should be obtained to assess the QT interval as well as the cardiac monitoring. So there will be a prolongation of the is a normal ECG, and if after there is a prolongation of the QT interval, which leads to cardiovascular complications in the patients. So in acute cases, urine arsenic level are usually in 100,000 microgram per liter. So if it is the urine arsenic level should be checked in acute cases. If it is more than 1000 microgram liter, you can the chance of then we can say that the person is having exposed or having an arsenic, high level of arsenic content in the blood. Chronic exposure, urine concentration of monoethyl arsenic acid, that is MMA, or diethyl arsenic acid, the metabolic products of arsenic's concentration will be high in the chronic exposure. That is the difference in the acute and chronic. So from this urine examination we can confirm whether the patient is having an acute or a chronic exposure. Suppose both are present, then we can say okay, he is having an acute as well as chronic exposure. He was previously was exposed and suddenly he exposed to a large amount of arsenic compound, leads to complication. The arsenic content of the hair, nail and may sometimes leave the past or exposure. So as we know, arsenic will be accumulated more in the keratinized tissues like nails and hairs. So you can go for the measurement of arsenic content in the hair and nail. Sometimes it will relieve the past exposure, whether he is having a previous exposure of this arsenic will be get an idea. And treatment, In acute cases, appropriate gut decontamination, suppose a person having an acute exposure that is through oral injection, so automatically go for a gut decontamination can be a better method to reduce the absorption. And intensive supportive care should be given, and intensive maintain its cardiovascular complications, so intensive supportive care should be given. And also you can use chelations with antidotes like Unithol, 3 to 5 milligram per kg intravenously every 6 hours you can use, or you can go for dimercapol, that is British anti-Lewis, 3 to 5 milligram per kg intramuscularly for every 4 to 6 hours. And also Suximar is also effective. So we can use 3 things. One is Unithol, dimercapol and Suximar can be used for the treatment of arsenic poisoning. But British anti-Lewis or Lewisit or dimercapol has a low therapeutic index. When compared with the Unithol or Suximar, they are having a low therapeutic index, so they can easily get precipitated toxicity. So better be those, if you use the dimercapol or British anti-Lewisit, be careful on using this compound. Next one is the next heavy metal is the lead. So lead is we can say lead is one of the oldest occupational and environmental disease in the world. So we may be heard about plumbers are more previously before coming of these PVC pipes. Most of the pipes are GI pipes. They having high amount of lead content to prevent corrosion. So they are plumbers. So plumbin is the name of lead, other name of lead, where these plumbers will get exposed to this lead poisoning with. So that is why it is one of the oldest occupational environmental disease in the world, and mainly happens with the widespread from the commercial applications, production of storage battery, metal alloys, soldering irons, glass and plastics, pigments, ceramics. All these areas we use we have an high exposure of lead, so they may be chance of getting exposure to lead is very high in these areas. So these are the various lead exposures in occupational, plumber, pipe fitters, land mining, painters. So previously the painting unit paints, we are highly that bright colored painters like red oxides, such type of paints were having high amount of lead content. So the painters used to they want to sharpen the tip of the brush. What happened? They will lick the brush, so they may highly get exposed. And also in the house, lead containing paints, pigments, and the lead oxides paints are highly bright colored paints. They have a sweet taste. Lead oxides having a sweet taste, so chance of getting the childrens to exposed to this lead oxide paints are very high. So they may be chances are very high with the childrens, so they may go and lick the walls and thereby getting exposed. And you can also see that lead soldering, electronic painting, so such are the areas where you will get easily get lead exposure. So what is the mechanism of toxicity? Lead excrete a multi-systemic toxic effect. It also exhibit a multi-systemic, because all the heavy metals can produce a multi-systemic toxic effect. So first thing is inhibition of enzymatic functions. So they can easily get inhibited by the enzymatic functions. And next one, the interference of cations. They may easily get interfere with the cations. So since it can replace the cations, so cation interference is very high. And generation of oxidative stress, changes of gene expression, interfering cell signaling, and description of integrity of the membrane, cell membrane integrity may get affected. Mainly it get affected to the developing nervous system of a fetus or a young child is the primary target of the lead. So that is why children are highly susceptible for this lead toxicity, because as we know, the fetus or the young children are the primary target for the nerve system of these young children, or the fetus are the primary targets for the lead. So lead can also induce edema, anemia, lead can also induce anemia that may be either normocytic or macrocytic, or hypochromic anemia can be produced by the lead, because they can replace or displace the iron content from in the hemoglobin, and thereby they can interfere with the heme synthesis and blocking the incorporation of iron into porphyrin system can be get blocked. And chronic and high dose of lead exposure may results in the renal interstitial fibrosis or nephrosclerosis can be happen, we can lead to nephropathy, maybe a latency period of the year. And high dose of lead exposure can produces a spontaneous abortion in a pregnant woman. And moderate lead poisoning may causes loss of appetite, constipation, and less commonly diarrhea can be produced. And high dose of exposure can goes to lead colic. Lead colic means severe abdominal pain happens in the lead. So lead exposure elevate the blood pressure also. They can also alter the blood pressure, prolongs the QT interval on the electrocardiogram, and lead exposure are risk factor of increasing cardiovascular mortality. So their chances of getting cardiovascular mortality is also very high with lead. So what are the major forms of lead intoxication? Industrial inhalation or large quantities of lead fumes is a major one. In children's, lead based paints, chips, small objects, toy coated, fabricated, or for lead contaminated food or drinking sources, food contaminated from the food and drinking waters or drinking sources are the main areas where children will get exposed to lead. So clinical manifestation: abdominal pain, that is lead colic, constipation can be happen, and joint pains because they can displace the calcium from the joints. So joint pain, muscle aches, this is also maybe due to the displacement of calcium from the muscles. Headache, anorexia, and decrease libido, that is lose the interest of sex, and difficulty in concentration, and loss of short-term memory. These are the major clinical manifestation of lead poisoning. And irritability, highly irritable nature, easily get agitated, the person or the child. Excessive fatigue, always feel tiredness and fatigue. Sleep disturbance, no proper sleeping. Sometimes the exposure goes higher, confusion can be happen, seizure, encephalopathy can be seen, and extremely high level of, so the confusion, seizure, and encephalopathy happens with a high level of lead poisoning. Anemia is also very common. Nephropathy is also happen, that is Fanconi syndrome can be happen. Fanconi syndrome is nothing, an excessive elimination of glucose, bicarbonate ions, phosphate, uric acid through urine. So that is that's called Fanconi syndrome. And also a typical symptom is the lead lining in the bluish pigmentation in the gums and tooth. So and also you can see bluish pigmentation in the gums and the tooth is happened in the lead poisoning patients, and also stippling of and also basophil stippling in the blood smear can also happen. That is nothing the basophils will be get dissolves in the granulocytes will be get dissolves in the blood smear. That can be also happen with the blood poisoning. So in chronic exposure, hypertension is a major one, and mortality and cardiovascular effect is high with high, and neuropsychotic effect can be happen. There may be a declining in a neurocognitive function, growth retardation in the children's, and psychotic symptoms like phobia, anxiety, depression, and hostility is more. Increase in risk of Parkinson's disease because it can displace the calcium ions and other things in the brain cells. And in reproductive system, it can causes miscarriage, stillbirth, preterm delivery in preterm delivery, and reduced birth weight can be happens in the pregnant women. And diagnostic, again you should go for the history, occupational and environmental history, job description should be collected. Laboratory testing, you can go for a diagnosis of lead toxicity in the blood level, measuring the lead in the urine and hair, and erythrocytic profile index, blood count and blood smear of morphology should be taken. 1. Blood urea nitrogen, serum creatinine and urine analysis. You can also go for an X-ray fluorescence to check the bone lead concentration, because I told you they can easily displace calcium. And neurobehavioral testing should be done, and nerve conduction velocity test should also done in such patients. Treatment, immediate treatment of exposure is gastrointestinal decontamination. Urine flow should be maintained in such patients, and lead encephalopathy, and if the kidney function should be checked, that is urine flow should be maintained, means it can easily get affected in the kidney. So the urine flow should be maintained in the patient. And if the person developed lead encephalopathy, corticosteroids or and mannitol and anticonvulsants should be used, because to prevent if lead encephalopathy happens, the person can precipitate convulsion. So you can go for an decrease the inflammation by using corticosteroids and mannitol, decrease the pressure, and also anticonvulsants